Okay, so right off the top, I got an apology. It is mid-Friday, which means this episode, an outstanding episode that I teased the last couple of weeks. New guests, big-time guests. Turns out it's ESPN's Bill Barnwell, is awesome. This is one of the deeper dives I have done on this show into a single game, and I don't know how long. And this is year 3 of the pods. We've had plenty of games. We've had a lot of time. ESPN's Bill Barnwell delivered in a big way. This is a way that I love nerding out. I think you will thoroughly enjoy listening to, but I said an apology off the top. You have about less than 48 hours to really soak in everything that we said. So on the back end of this is another gift. Keion White joined us for the 4-minute drill. I'll be honest, not my finest performance because Keion White, I swear to God, could jump in as the new king of cringe comedy in the NFL anytime that he wanted. The first question, he deadpanned me. He deadpanned me a lot, and you'll just kind of see how it goes. But Keion was great. Bill was outstanding. When the Patriots have the ball, when the Seahawks have the ball, for those of you who are new, we typically do a 3 matchups, 2 keys, 1 wild card thought breakdown, 3, 2, 1. And we also talk about big picture things like, can the Patriots have a plan B on offense? Because we all wrote after the opener, and I said here, this is how they have to win. And they can win. Great defense, no turnovers, special teams are good moving forward. But it's really like walking a tightrope. So we had some ideas about how that rope can go from, I don't know how wide a tightrope is. Like maybe we get a second one. So you've got 1 foot on each to widen that out a little bit in case you slip, which the Patriots we know will do. They're not going to be a great team, but they can be a winning team and perhaps a 2-0 team. So full breakdown coming with ESPN's Bill Barnwell. Before that, I just want to hit on a couple of things that came up this week since we last talked on Monday night. Number one, a massive old school journalism story from ESPN, Don Bennett Jr. writing why Robert Kraft has not gotten into the Hall of Fame yet. And it's been a 12-year quest, as he put it. And look, my first reaction to this was, who asked for this story? Like, am I looking at the now defunct ESPN Boston? And this story is about 4,000, 5,000 words long. So off the top, there is a lot of rich journalism in here, good reporting. We all suspected the Krafts owned the rights and had real editorial control over the dynasty. The doc in the book, they did. It's in there. It's in the report. Also in there, a lot of behind the scenes kind of inner workings about the Hall of Fame voting process. Why Kraft is not in, though he's had the 6 Super Bowl rings, gone to the Super Bowl a few other times, including with 2 different head coaches, and obviously presided over the greatest dynasty in NFL history. Personally, I don't care a whole lot. Like, I'm of the belief Kraft should be in the Hall of Fame. And whatever you want to say about spending lately or the Belichick exit, which was ugly, and all of the tried and I would say failed puppeteering going on from ownership, especially for the last 12 months, like the guy won. He should be in there. There are 5 or 6 owners already in the Hall of Fame. He should be there. Now, part of that has to do with his personal PR man, spokesman, and the team's head of PR, Stacey James, someone who, full disclosure, I speak with almost on a daily basis because I'm a rep for all the Patriots beat writers and media when there are conflicts about availability or player didn't show up here, do that. And it's not to harp on PR. It's just to say, hey, look, here's the media policy. We got to follow by these rules. This is what we're looking for. And there's a lot of negotiation that goes back and forth. So Stacey is described in there as being intense. The things that Stacey cares about, he is very intense about. And part of the story makes the point of which I can't verify. I didn't do it in this reporting. But that intensity, that longing, that desire to help get Robert into the Hall of Fame, something Stacey cares deeply about, has actually had the opposite effect and had turned off certain voters who were going to vote on this, which is also kind of an opaque, clumsy process because you've got a certain number of media members, some of whom are not totally that attached. Anyway, there's a sentence in there about like cajoling and dining and pressing and doing all these different things. I fully believe Stacey put on the full court press. He's quoted in the story. I'm sure they're not happy about it. So for me, the takeaway is this. I believe Kraft should be in the Hall of Fame. I wasn't really sure why the story was out there in the first place, but I am appreciative of the journalism that was done because you got to learn things you did not know. You got to go places you do not get to go. And that's always my goal when I write my stories, whether they're big, deep, behind-the-scenes dives or talking to sources and having phone calls at midnight so you can know something maybe sometimes a couple months later. So it's a great story. I know it made headlines for a day or two. We'll hit on it here. We'll leave it at that. Number 2, story I did have this week, which according to a little birdie, got all the way to Seattle because the story was about the Patriots this offseason very secretly installing a brand new pressure package from ex-Ravens defensive coordinator, new Seattle head coach, Mike Macdonald. You might go, okay, well, why is that a big deal? Well, I'll put it like this. As Jonathan Jones told to me, longtime Patriots corner, he used to have a running joke the last few years. He would come in the spring, OTA practices, workouts, minicamp. Coaches are reinstalling Belichick's defense. And he would go, are we installing something new today? And his business coach, Mike Pellegrino, would go, no, we're not. So he does the same thing this spring. Are we installing something new today? And Mike Pellegrino goes, yeah, actually, we are. This is something the Patriots never would have done under Belichick. That is just a statement of fact. Actually, take that back. It's a statement of opinion in Jonathan Jones, whose opinion, having been around this long and known Bill as well as he did and does, I think should be taken as close to fact. This is not to say it's a good or bad thing. It's just a point of intrigue, a storyline, something unprecedented as we go forward into this new era. The Patriots are not only expanding their playbook, which you always tweak every offseason, but they're copying and pasting, going to Xerox and bringing it back home and putting it in their own book because Mike Macdonald's a really freaking good defensive coach. And a lot of what they do is similar enough to what the Patriots, meaning the Ravens historically, because that's where Macdonald came from, that they can do some of the things here in New England as well. Now, they didn't show a whole lot in Cincinnati. And I think I talked about this last week where defenders like Kyle Duggar, Jonathan Jones, Will Peppers are saying, hey, this is a different defense. It's going to be more aggressive with Covington. And that's like the central square on any bingo card when you get a new defensive coordinator, right? It's like, we're going to be more aggressive. It's going to be multiple. It's going to be this and that. No one's ever saying we're going to be passive. It's 4 down and a lot of zone coverage, which I think I did. I did talk about this last week. The point is, that's what they meant. There's this new pressure package, which the Seahawks are going to run from on Sunday. The Patriots could run on their own and will moving forward. So if you've not read the story, I would suggest you do that. Quotes from Jonathan Jones, Anthony Jennings, Jabril Peppers, who said, whoever told you that told you too much, Mayo, and a couple other people. So something of note this week. And then again, I said Keion White at the end of the show, the man, he's probably the most interesting man in his locker room. We did the football, non-football questions. There's stuff that we didn't even get to that I would love to talk about. We might even have a whole podcast segment with him because he's an open book. He's just going to say it in the same manner, making the same face as anything else that he says, which can feel a little awkward when you're the interviewer. But good dude. You listen to the 4-minute drill after Bill Barnwell. Before we get to that, guys, if you're not playing already, I don't know what you're doing. Because Prize Picks, to me, especially in the middle of the week, I'm not putting money on football. But this is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app for a reason. It's just you against the numbers. If you're watching on Sunday, this is the simplest, fastest, easiest way to win money while you watch the NFL. You just pick more or pick less on 2 or more stat projections and see if you win. That's it. Last week, if you had done this with Ramondre Stevenson, or if you had done this with the number of field goals for Joey Sly, or if you did this for any of the unders, basically for the Bengals, you would have won. And you can do it with those same players in totals, or Pop Douglas, or Jacoby Brissett. And with Prize Picks, if you make 4 correct picks, you could win up to 100 times your money. Because this is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy as well. So if you have 4 picks and someone gets hurt, no problem. Your lineup is still intact. And I've used Prize Picks before. I said in the middle of the week, again, the Sox, okay, I'll finally admit it. The Red Sox are out. It's done. It's over. I'm sad. But they're still playing. I'll still play Prize Picks. Pick over on the strikeouts, some RBI, some home runs. So this Sunday, if you would prefer to play, and I would encourage you to, you can have basically a free square in the bingo card. Caleb Williams more than 0.5 pass yards. If he gets 1 pass yard, you win. That's it. Put it in your lineup, lock it in. I'll give you 2 more picks as we do every single week. And full disclosure, your boy went 0 for 2 last week, but we're rebounding this week. And here's how. Geno Smith, less than 21 completions on Sunday. The Patriots are not giving up 22 completions or more to Geno Smith. It's not going to happen. I don't know about the yards. DK Metcalf could get loose, but this defense is going to confuse. They're going to deny, and you'll hear more about that with Bill Barnwell. I will also take Jacoby Brissett more than 15.5 rush yards. So what he did last week, he had 32. This offensive line is going to give up a lot of pressure. I think they're going to put the Patriots, they're going to put the offense in more bootleg situations. Those are 1-2 reads at most, and then take off. When they run more plays like that, and Jacoby Brissett is under more pressure, he will have more than 15.5 rush yards. So to recap, our Prize Picks of the week, Caleb Williams for the Bears, more than 0.5 pass yards. It's free money. Geno Smith, less than 21 completions, something you're going to root for. And then Jacoby Brissett, more than 15.5 rush yards. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS. That's CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you pay $5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay, as promised, the great Bill Barnwell of ESPN baited into doing this rinky-dink podcast, trapped into talking Patriots. But I would say, Bill, if there was ever a time to talk Patriots, I would say it would be after their biggest upset win in 8 years. No?
Yeah, I mean, this was a team I was really interested in heading into this season. And I hate playing the like national media stuff. But I will say it kind of felt like a lot of people were writing this team off as irrelevant. Like they were going to be the worst team in the league. It was going to be a real, just sort of just a mess of a year. And, you know, it's week 1 or week 2. I don't want to, you know, pat myself on the back too much, but this is a team that I feel like I've been talking about all offseason as being really interesting and maybe better than people expect. Not a great team, but at least a competitive team. And certainly we saw plenty of that in week 1.
Yeah, and they made your annual list of teams most likely to improve, right? And your record's what, like 900 on that? What's do you have it off the top of your head?
I believe it's more in like the 758 range, but you know, we're still talking about good. And of course, like the question is, how much are they going to improve, right? Like I think for a team that had, I believe, the lowest win expectation in all football, 4.5 wins heading into this year. Like I don't think anyone's going to be patting me on the back if they win 5 games, but I do think this is a 7-8 win team if things break right. And I think you saw an example of what happens if things break right in the win over the Bengals.
Yeah, you're not the only person to share this. You know, mutual friend Aaron Schatz came on the pod and said 7-10 this summer. And everyone in local radio was like, hey, look at this drunk guy Callahan got for his podcast, who's really into analytics because he sounds insane. Lo and behold, you two both look really good. I do want to go back to the summer, though, because you have this awesome preseason tradition with Mina, Dominique Foxworth, Roundtable Pods, and you go from mild to hot to spiciest possible take. So I want to ask one of the smartest, one of those measured man at ESPN in the NFL department, just your current spiciest Patriots take right off the top.
Ooh, let's lean into what I said over the summer. Let's say this is going to be a top 5 defense in 2024. Cool. I know that's obviously the strength of the team. I don't think this is more like a hot than a spicy maybe, but I do think it is, you know, for again, a team that was being written off, a team that the defense was not being talked about in this way. I tried to talk to as many people over the summer as possible and getting this out. I don't think people care to listen, but it's the truth. This was the best defense in football last year. This was in the second half of the season, they were the best defense in football. And that was with the 3rd worst average starting field position of any defense over the last decade over that stretch of football. That was without Matt Judon, without Christian Gonzalez, with a terrible offense, with nothing to play for, with Bill Belichick having one foot out the door in terms of being a lame duck coach. And yet this defense showed up week after week with no hope of really winning and played competitive football and really busted their butts. And you would figure if that defense was going to take a step backwards, they don't have Judon again this year. Of course, they traded him. Christian Barmore's not there, and he's a huge addition, but a very talented player. But not crazy to think this defense could still be really good. And then you factor in all the improvements on the offensive side of the ball, where they're not going to be great, but they might at least be competitive when it comes to protecting the football, when it comes to, you know, not forcing so many mistakes the way we saw from the offense last year. This defense could be in position to be a top 5 defense in terms of scoring defense. Whereas last year it was really, you know, the advanced stats, EPA per play, even, points per drive. It was a great defense second half of the year. So, you know, maybe it's a little easier after week 1, but I do think this is a legitimate top 5 defense, especially if they do get Barmore back at some point during the season.
Well, I think the first point you make too is such a great one. And I discussed this last week, recapping, you know, film of the Bengals. Like the power of Jacoby Brissett this year is not giving the ball away. So for your defense, when you're put in better situations of just, we're not playing essentially with 10 guys due to either starting in our own territory or having to play an extra possession or two because the offense is screwing it up that badly, you'll be able to play normal defense. Like you can go into a workplace where it'll be 9 to 5. And that's it. You know, you get in, you get out. If you're good at your job, you're not dealing with any kind of craziness around you that saps your energy or puts you in a less spot to be productive. And that's what they should theoretically have this year, which gets me to my next question. You know, you're so good, again, diving deeper into things, kind of separating the signal from the noise. It's one game. We all get that. But I want to put all the small sample qualifiers out the window. You look at that week 1 game. What felt sustainable to you for the Patriots and what did not?
I mean, on one hand, the formula sort of seems sustainable. Like this, you're not going to get a fumble on the 2-yard line that you recover every week. Jacoby Brissett had, I think, at least one play where the ball kind of went up in the air. Maybe there was that. I think it was throw to the end zone where could have been picked off.
Yeah, Hunter Henry.
I don't think he's going to put the ball in danger like that on a weekly basis. So I would say that formula of great defense, run game, and winning, or at least being competitive with the turnover battle, is quasi-sustainable, just not as dramatic as it was last week. The thing I would say for sure I feel good about after last week is the coverage in the back end, because that is so much of that is communication, so much of that is just having the talent to pull that off. And the Patriots have that. I mean, they are a really smart, really well-coached defense. I think the concerns maybe people had about, this defense is going to look really sloppy without Bill, or certainly not as, well put together without Bill Belichick, which I think is a fair concern. Bill Belichick is to me, the greatest defensive coach in the history of the National Football League. Like, they looked every bit as smart, every bit as fluid, every bit as capable of disguising what they were going to do pre and post snap. They executed their plans really well. There weren't a lot of blown coverages or a lot of mistakes. And having Gonzalez on top of all that gives you this sort of force multiplier, right? Where if you want to play, Christian Gonzalez one-on-one in man coverage versus Jamar Chase, you can do that and survive. Not a lot of people in the NFL have cornerbacks who can do that. If you want to drop off and play zone, well, you can disguise that because you have a player who can go and move anywhere on the field. You have guys who are capable of playing different spots in the secondary. You get Marcus Jones back, which I think was a huge loss to them last year that people didn't really pay much attention to, even though it did hurt them a lot in the secondary. Have to stay healthy. Obviously, that is the big thing. If they lose Gonzalez, if they lose Marcus Jones again, if they lose Kyle Duggar, they're going to be hit hard. But relatively, I think the brightest spot, the thing that I feel strongest about is this team is going to be very good in coverage. They're going to give people fits. They're going to be able to take away receivers if they want to, and they're going to disguise what they can do on a week-to-week basis. And that's going to be tough for opposing offenses. We don't know if they have that great pass rusher that maybe you would hope you'd have in this defense that maybe they got rid of when they traded Judon. But in terms of what they can do on the back end, I think they're capable of doing just about anything against even great NFL offenses.
And Bill, we have a joke on this podcast. When people are super serious about the points they make, you say National Football League. When you were giving Bill Belichick his proper due, instead of saying the NFL, you go National Football League. You really mean that. And to follow up on your points, like to the soundness of the defense, it had 3 missed tackles. No one else in football in week 1 had fewer than 10. You talk about disguising coverages. I described it as kind of this midseason plan that they were able to drop into week 1 because these guys have been here forever. And so I'm curious too, and I wrote about this earlier this week, talked about it in the intro to this pod. They're tweaking the defense in a way that gives it a little more flavor. Like, they've got all the spices on the rack that you could want, but when you get to pick from the Mike McDonald shelf and then add that in there too, and you're doing even more things they haven't even shown, it encourages me. Now, granted, they'll miss more tackles against offenses that are going to threaten you with more than just Jamar Chase, and they don't have any other weapons on hand. To me, I would bring up a couple things too. Jacoby Brissett's sack avoidance is huge. Like, you were among the other people earliest on this. Sacks are a quarterback stat. He had a 7.7 pressure to sack rate, which was second in the league behind Lamar Jackson, who, if you've watched him for 1 game, you understand how that stat works. He avoids pressure, doesn't get sacked. It's generally a good thing. It won't be that low, but it will be better in a way. Things that are not sustainable. Ramondre Stevenson, 28 touches. Like, that dude will be a corpse by week 14 if he keeps getting that many touches. And you're not going to face a bad run defense every single week. But I feel like we covered that otherwise. If you're looking for hope, it's still with the defense.
No question. And certainly we'll talk about some of this stuff as we preview, I think, the Seahawks game and, some of the stuff that might not be sustainable or things that are maybe keys for the Patriots to win this game. But, the Patriots' victories this year before Drake May comes in are going to look a lot like this game. Like, they're not going to be exactly the same, but, it's going to be because they tackle well. It's going to be because they protect the football. It's going to be because they create takeaways. It's going to be because, there's a 2 or 3 third and shorts or a 4th and short where they just flow to the football better and they tackle reliably and they're smart and they anticipate what's happening with good coaching and good film study. Like, they are going to have to win by being a team that executes better, a team that is coached and prepared better, and a team that communicates better than other teams in this league. And I think that is not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. And look, we're going to get into this in a second because you are here for the Seahawks game. glad we covered that. But like the chess match this week is so different, I think, from the Bengals, which is not to dismiss Lou Anarumo, who was getting more flowers, than anyone on Valentine's Day a couple of years ago for what he did to the Chiefs. But it's just to say that like there are new systems, great defensive coach, and a lot the Patriots have to handle, where last week it was like, yeah, we can shadow Jamar Chase and kind of get away defensively, and offensively, we got to protect. And we're going to run the ball, and I know that latter part will work. So before we get into the matchup, though, this is a big week, too, in the NFL. Pats Seahawks, Chiefs Bengals, Saints Cowboys. And, Bill, I don't know where you're going to be on Sunday. I think you're probably at home watching all these games.
Yes.
Okay. If you were going to go to a game, I would love to help you out by sending you to Game Time. And this goes for anyone listening right now, because Game Time is giving you a big deal here with CLNS. I'm talking about $20 off your first purchase. This is how it works. You can go to any game at Gillette this season, check your seat view, and get the lowest price guaranteed by going to Game Time, where if you find a lower price elsewhere, this is 110% of the difference back to you if you find a lower price elsewhere. Not to mention, this is all in pricing, baby. So we're not doing the little pesky fees at the end, things you've never heard about. It's the number up front. It's the number at the end. And again, you get to check your seat view. So go to Game Time Picks, where it filters out all of the fluff, only incredible deals, great seats. You don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. There are going to be good games. Seattle at home, Miami next month. The Texans are coming in, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets before Halloween. Or if you want to go to Kansas City to see the Bengals again, by all means, download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use code CLNS for that free $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Create an account. Redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time, baby. All right. That's it. Into the matchup. So, big picture, when I looked at the Seahawks film and you look at some of the numbers that come out after, it struck me, Bill, that I think they want to play the same game, right? They know their limitations with the offensive lines. These are two defenses that spent a lot of time in too high. Last week, we know it's very common across the league. What do you make of that idea that you're going to see not mirror images, specifically a receiver, but everywhere else is kind of like, okay, we're on the same page before we even get started here?
Yeah, this was actually a really interesting game. I think with the Patriots, if you were forecasting what their offense was going to look like with Jacoby Brissett, like maybe you'd have some little changes here and there, but basically you got what you expected week one, right? Like you got a heavy run dose, you got Brissett protecting the football, like you said, the sack avoidance, the interception avoidance, they were comfortable throwing short of the sticks if they had to. They wanted their drives to end with a kick, and that was what we expected. Seahawks, I have to admit, I was a little surprised based on what I saw because, you think about Ryan Grubb, you think about what that offense looked like his last year at Washington. They were spreading the ball. They were throwing deep. Michael Penix felt like every pass was 25 yards downfield. And I recognize you're going to change your offense here and there, but you're going to form a case that, hey, the Seahawks have, three great receivers in Lockett, Smith, and Jigba and Metcalf. Maybe this is going to be a very pass-happy offense. And that was not the case week one. It was a very conservative offense. Geno Smith, his average pass traveled 6.5 yards in the air, which I think was 25th or so in air yards per attempt.
That sounds right.
A pretty conservative offense. And then a lot of physical running, a lot of duo, a lot of counter, a lot of gap runs to try and overwhelm them up front, overwhelm the Broncos up front, I should say. And that is, I think, where I would lean for what this offense looks like week two. I think a lot more of trying to test the Patriots up front. I think a lot more of, can we control the game with our run game? The only question is if Kenneth Walker plays, because if Kenneth Walker does not play and he has missed practice, I think as we record this, I don't know if that's the Seahawks. Is there any reports from Seahawks practice today as we record this?
We haven't heard anything. So we're recording Friday early afternoon, which is me trying to wait as long as possible. I will check all of my updates, which is anytime Adam Schefter, I think, moves an inch, it pops up on my phone. There's nothing here. So we're still waiting because it's 11 o'clock West Coast time. But look, if you miss practice Wednesday, Thursday, and that goes for the right tackle, George Fant too, typically you're definitely not at 100%. And B, you're probably not going to play on Sunday, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, certainly Kenneth Walker, could play. He could be limited. We saw Zach Charbonnet in the second half of that game. Zach Charbonnet is a different kind of back. I don't think he's as, he's not as explosive. I think he can run between the tackles fine, but I don't think he has that sort of special acceleration, that special ability to, pile up missed tackles that Kenneth Walker does. So I think there'd be a question of, do they change the run game a bit? If Zach Charbonnet is the primary back, so of course you're not going to want to give Zach Charbonnet 25 carries either. Most likely you're going to want to split carries with him. and the other backs on that roster. So, I think with Walker, they are a more imposing run game, but I think that's where it starts for the Seahawks is just, can we, facing a Patriots defense, it's not going to have Christian Barmore. Can we physically overwhelm the Patriots? The Patriots are, I think, a very stout defense. I don't think that's a weakness for them, but I think the Seahawks see that as kind of the core of their offense so far early this season.
Yeah, and that explosion, you're talking about going from Ken Walker to Zach Charbonnet. To remember that, I would just say, remember how long it takes you to say the name Zach Charbonnet. That's the guy who's not getting into the hole as quickly or coming as out. And Gerard Mayo gave, a lot of praise to Kenneth Walker, saying, look, he pops off the film. I don't know what his Madden rating is, but this dude is a dude. Now, to steal from your former colleague, Zach Lowe, this is the way I like to introduce, especially games later in the season. Like, this is too early for DVOA, but people are going to listen to the podcast. This is the breakdown you're going to get as we get into the matchup, and we'll start with the Seahawks when they have the ball. Seahawks are 4th overall in DVOA. They're 7th in offense, number 1 in defense, 27th in special teams. The Patriots are a top 10 team right now. They're number 8 overall, 15th in offense, folks. That's above average. 11th in defense, feels low, but 8th in special teams. Seattle won. We'll do the last 4 matchups here as we preview every single game. They won 26-20. Kenneth Walker, 100 yards, touchdown. Geno Smith ran for 1, 34 yards, threw for another. O-line struggled in pass protection. The defense generated a ton of pressure. And Bo Nix looked like a rookie. So that's what you missed. But sticking when the Seahawks have the ball, this to me is a classic. Okay, how many safeties do the Patriots have? And then within the screen, right, as you're watching it home on the TV copy. And if they're stopping the run and you don't see Kyle Duggar or Jabril Peppers or Jalen Hawkins, they're in really good shape. When they have to spin that down and go from a 2 high structure to single high, that to me is going to say, okay, the Seahawks are probably winning on the ground. Is that too simple?
No, I think that's when you talk to quarterbacks about like what's the simplest thing you're looking for, like what's the first pre-snap thing you're looking at, or the most important pre-snap thing you're looking at. It's what's the weak side safety doing, because if the weak side safety is creeping into the box, you're getting single high. You know what the run fits are going to be, or it's going to be, you're going to have numbers in the box. You're going to have to be accounting for whether you're going to be hot because you might have too many guys to block if the safety comes. If the safety stays high, you're getting too deep. That it changes what the run fits are. It changes what your look's going to be after the snap. If you're running an RPO, it changes what the overhang defenders are doing. It sort of is a, not only just a play tell, but like you're saying, a big picture tell about what the Patriots are doing, what they're succeeding with, and sort of what they're having to do with their safeties. Like, it is a luxury. Every team, of course, wants to play too deep because you're not giving up as many big plays. And the Seahawks have guys who can hit big plays on the ground with Walker and in the passing game with all of their receivers. And that's obviously the thing you want to avoid. You want to take that away first. So if you can then stop the run with your 7 guys in the box without having to deal with, Duggar in the box as an 8th player, that's obviously a huge advantage. So I think it's going to be a test, right? Early in the game, I think you're going to see the Patriots sort of see what they can get away with on defense. And if they need to put that safety in the box, I think if they are succeeding and they're having the Seahawks in 3rd and long, this is going to be trouble for the Seahawks because there's a really big weakness here for Seattle, and it's the right side of their offensive line. George Fant, their starter is Abe Lucas. Abe Lucas is on the PUP list to begin the year, I believe. George Fant, their right tackle, I think you mentioned, he missed practice this week. Probably not going to play. Came out early last week. Their 3rd string right tackle is Stone Forsythe, which I'm going to say just sick name to start. NFL names, Stone Forsythe.
This is what it reminded me of. Tell me which one is more fair. Does it sound like the rich kid villain in a Disney movie? Or is this like if you have a crayon box only for rich kids, that's like the slate in there, the stone color?
I love those. I think of, isn't there a guy in Pearl Jam whose first name is Stone?
You're talking about the wrong guy.
That's what it evokes for me, is that like a grunge guitarist, like Stone, especially in Seattle too.
That's a great call.
Dude with like super long hair. He's wearing flannel onto the field. He's just blocking dudes. But anyway, that's the weak side of the line. Stone Forsythe at the right tackle, probably in this game. And then Anthony Bradford, the right guard, in his 2nd season, had some hiccups in the opener. That's where you're going to attack. So to me, for the Patriots, that's their question of, okay, we don't have that great one-on-one pass rusher. Obviously, Keion White had an awesome game last week. But in terms of, are you setting your pass rushes so you have one-on-ones on that side? Are you running your twists, your stunts to that side and forcing those guys who haven't played much together to communicate, to pick up stuff on the fly? If you're the Seahawks, are you putting your tight ends that side? Are you putting an extra lineman out there? Are you sliding your protections that way? Like, I think that game within the game of, how can we protect the right side of that line and not get stuck in third and long where the Patriots can cave that side of the line in, I think is sort of where you start for the obvious weakness for the Seahawks when they have the football.
And especially, too, the way they move Keion White around. Like, it would be easy to say, just park him at right tackle, let him do whatever he wants, and that's going to work out. But the way in which, you keep it a little more unpredictable. So Seattle can't say, to your point, okay, we'll slide right, we'll chip, we'll double, we'll run at him, which Cincinnati had some success doing, especially on their touchdown drive. And Trent Brown just washed him out because Trent Brown, like our guy, Storm Forsythe, is 6'9" and humongous. But there's a way to even set up the stunts you're talking about, right? If you start him as a 3 technique and have him loop around, Keion White got more mobility, agility, certainly laterally than a lot of defensive tackles. That might be a way to generate pressure. And we know the Patriots are creative with that. Anyway, I will say, though, to Storm Forsythe, so much time with Stone Forsythe, he graded out okay as a run blocker for PFF. So this is a Seahawks team, Ryan Grubb, who had the 5th highest run rate in neutral downs last week, wants to run the ball, that they could still go behind him. And that's where I think who gets to set the terms of engagement here is so clear, because if I'm the Patriots and I'm worried, like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett is at the top of that list, but losing the first quarter and a half is maybe second or third of things that I'm really, really trying to guard against.
Yeah. And of course, there's that big game script question, right? Of last week, the Patriots were ahead early. They got to play from ahead or in a close game all game. And that just creates lots of options for what you can do on offense. You can run the ball reliably. You can throw checkdowns. You can punt and feel good about it. You can't do that when you're down 10. You can't do it when you're down 14. You can't do it when you're down multiple scores. And that is obviously, I think, on paper, the biggest weakness for this Patriots team is, can Jacoby Brissett throw when they're down and need to throw in obvious passing situations? And can they pass protect in obvious passing situations, which they couldn't pass protect in neutral situations last week when Chuks Okorafor was out there at left tackle, and even Fedarian Lowe was better, but still, that is, a weakness or a concern at the very least for this Patriots team. And so as we talk about we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball for the Seahawks in a minute, but that to me is a key thing of, okay, it's not just managing play to play on offense. It's not just managing, drive to drive, but I think just that big picture of, okay, can our defense keep us in the game to avoid having the offense be in a desperate passing situation?
Yeah. 2 things. Number one, if we hang up here and you get a call from Gerard Mayo and he says, hey, Bill, should I shadow DK Metcalf with Christian Gonzalez? Your answer is what?
Probably no, just because they have other guys who can beat you. It's not like the Bengals last week where it was just Jamar Chase. And, no disrespect to Andre Yosevas or the other guys in that offense, but like, you were going to be prepared to have those guys beat you. With Metcalf, like the Patriots are a physical team. Everyone in their secondary, can hold up. They're not going to get physically overwhelmed, I don't think, on a week-to-week basis. Metcalf's obviously a special player and a unique player, but I think the big picture for me is, can we disguise our coverages for Geno Smith? Geno Smith is a smart quarterback. He is very efficient. He's very good. He's very accurate. He is really good at, I think, processing. He's a player who has seen a lot of stuff, and so I don't think he's going to get overwhelmed. But I don't know that the Patriots want to be in a game where they're playing a ton of man, where they're just sort of shading or they're shadowing Metcalf with Gonzalez, because I just think you want to have that sort of ability to disguise what you're doing, and they can still do that. They can have Gonzalez, like you posted in your recap of the Bengals game, like it look like he's shadowing and then drop into zone. You can do that. But I do think, you want to mix it up. You're going to want to have snaps where it's Gonzalez versus Metcalf, but I don't think you want to do that, every single series all game.
So I lean, more towards like the Jamar Chase shadow. 75% of the time is where he covered him on those routes. And to me, it is a size thing, because I do trust Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones, but 6'5", hulking, like ready for any kind of Mr. America contest, DK Metcalf can body them out on slants, box them out, certainly winning any jump balls. And Jonathan Jones played really well. So did Marcus Jones. There's just an element of like, we're playing in the backyard. You spot the tallest dude on your team versus the shortest one on theirs. You're like, I should probably just throw it to you. I don't know what the call is. We don't have a route call. We're just here playing catch in the backyard. I'm going to throw it to him. Now, to your point, when Joe Burrow finally did solve a lot of that two match that they were playing, and it's not like, match rules, but you get the concept of dropping into zone, they're showing man. It was going vertical from the slot to Chase for that 28-yard completion, which is the only explosive play the Bengals had. If I'm Seattle, I'm not taking 3 quarters to figure this out. Like, I will look at that every single time and send those slots. So the Patriots have not tipped their hand. They've got a lot more tricks in the bag. But that leads me to number 2 that I was going to ask you. Give us just the lowdown on Geno Smith, because I think, from a national perspective, people here forget Patriots have not seen him since 2014. This is a guy who's in the division forever, and it's been a full freaking decade since they've had the game plan for him.
Wow. I mean, this is, to me, and this is going to sound shocking, but I do believe the numbers back it up. I think when I see on tape back up, this is one of the 3 or 4 most accurate quarterbacks in football. Like, his strength is, his ball placement is incredible. He is so good, especially when he's hot. Like, he will be a little streaky here and there, but man, if you have a clean pocket for Geno Smith and you're asking him to like put a football in a teacup, he's going to do it more often than just about anybody else in football. His ball placement, his feel for where to put balls within coverage, his ability to, just his sense of like timing and where to get the ball to, phenomenal. I really think that is the big strength for Geno Smith. You can fool him at times. Like, I think he's smart, but I do think, he will occasionally fall in love with the read and try to force a throw in, because I think he's a guy who thinks, not because of his arm strength, like there's like, I'm trying to think of good examples. I don't know if Justin Herbert is like this, but just maybe early Josh Allen, where it's like, I could throw the ball, even last year, Josh Allen, like I can fit the ball anywhere I please because I have a howitzer attached to my arm.
Yeah, like Superman 3 shots in, watch what I can do,
Right. I think there are guys who make throws like that because they think every window is open to me because of my arm strength. Geno's not like that. Geno doesn't have that caliber of arm, but I think Geno thinks, okay, even if the window is small, kind of like a Dak Prescott maybe, like even though the window is small, I trust my guys and I trust my ability to put the ball in the exact right spot. I think he has that ability. And so you get a lot of throws like that. So I think your hope, if you're the Patriots, is, maybe we can convince him to think that a window is there and then take that away, force an interception that way. I do think, you can create turnovers on Geno Smith. I know last week he did run for a touchdown. That's pretty rare. Geno is not a great scrambler. Like, he's functional. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the 40 times in terms of the battle between him and Jacoby Brissett for, the slowest quarterback in football. But
I was going to say, he's probably on the list that Gerard Mayo, made up on Monday, slowest black quarterback in the league. Like, they're in the conversation. Yeah. Yes.
Teddy Bridgewater sadly retired, or else he would be the 10-time reigning champion for this award. But like Geno Smith is not someone who's going to make a lot of moves with his legs. Last week his scramble for a touchdown was an exception. I think it was almost a surprise to the Broncos, where like they were not expecting him to scramble at all. So when he did, it was wide open because they weren't expecting it at all. I think the Patriots are going to be a little smarter about that. You'll at least be, you're not going to spy him, but at least you're going to be thoughtful about your rush lanes, thoughtful about keeping eyes on the quarterback at all times. You're going to have the ability to do that. So I think you're going to see, a guy who is a very accurate passer. That is the thing to me you're going to look for in this game. He's not going to miss a lot of throws. And that is if you're the Patriots, I think you're hoping for turnovers, not for him to miss wide open receivers.
Mm-hmm. I just want to thank you in advance for me, the dream I'm going to have at 3 a.m. in the morning of Geno Smith doing something with teacups. And I'm just going to have to wake up my wife and be like, why is this Alice in Wonderland? Is Geno like in the sequel? It's not Johnny Depp. And there's just from the comment you made, because that picture is just so vivid and so good. I'm like, I don't know why it's a teacup, but like you can see it as soon as you said it. Yeah.
Also, footballs, I don't know if you know this, Andrew, don't fit into teacups. So I'm not sure why I even brought up that metaphor. I think it's like
smashing teacups.
Is it a baseball thing? Maybe it's a baseball thing that I've sort of taken and applied to football. But, that idea of like, can you fit the football into a incredibly small window? Like that, if you saw that CJ Stroud completion on 3rd and long late in the game against the Colts last week, that was a throw that had to go into the tiniest possible window because otherwise it was going to be incomplete or out of bounds, and he fit it in the exact spot. Geno Smith has that ability as well.
Okay, so we wrap up here. Seahawks offense versus Patriots defense. The number one area, it sounds like you and I are aligned. Like it is the passing game. I would go medium to deep passing game specifically just because of how good Geno is in those areas. You look at PFF, a lot of different breakdowns. That'll tell you that's where they want to live. And we're still learning about this Ryan Grubb offense. which I'll give a couple of quotes here at the end just to highlight, like, this is new. This is not unlike any other, or it's not like any other offense you see in the league. But is that where you land here? Number one danger zone?
Yeah, I think so. I think you want to start from the top down. Just, okay, can we force them to go, 8, 9, 10 plays down the field for a score every time? Because I think if you do, your hope is going to be that you can take advantage of the offensive line and you can force a sack, you can force a negative play, you can force a penalty. And then I think when you're in 3rd and long, you feel good about your chances.
Okay. So the last thing I'm going to say here about Ryan Grubb, who, you talked about last year with Washington, and they're throwing the ball down the field. They're running the ball very well. It's Michael Penix, Jalen Polk, Roma Dunze. I forget what's McMillan's first name. I know he's a mid-round pick this year. Jalen McMillan. So the thing that always had my eye, in addition to Penix dropping these bombs and going to the national title game, was how often they shifted in motion from like whatever formation you saw at beginning was not anything that they said at the end. So Jonathan Jones told me this week, quote, "It's not a historical offense. They've pulled things from places in other teams. It's not a Shanahan offense or West Coast. They really kind of do their own thing." And Kyle Duggar added, "Look, they build formations a whole lot different. They're not going to show it initially. They do a good job of showing you what they're not going to be in, but they want to run the ball and get the ball downfield." So it's a lot of 11 personnel. You'll see the 3 receivers at all times. Their motion rate, according to your teammate Seth Walder, was 80% of all plays, which was top 5 last week. And motion at the snap, they were top 10. So to me, the one, I'm not flying the ointment, but the one, hey, it's week 2. Everyone's getting back into the rhythm of things, is if you have a bad pre-snap read or your eyes are in the wrong place, which this is what Seattle wants to test, that might give the Patriots, even in a too high shell, paying extra attention to DK Metcalf, a coverage bust that then invites a touchdown. You go, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah, I think you have to hope that you're better than most other teams at that. And I think that is fair to say about the Patriots. I think this is a very well communicating team. Like you said, it's an experienced team that's played together a lot. So I think there's a lot of, trust from spot to spot. I think what the guy next to you is doing. I mean, this is the classic oldest Bill Belichick do your job speech imaginable. But I do think that is a strength for the Patriots defense. So still possible, obviously, but I think they're better equipped to fight that and battle that than most other defenses.
Yeah. And Jerod Mayo did say today, like, hey, we need to find out how they want to play us, which is to say, like, you don't have many options, which is good on us, but that'll kind of dictate our plan. They have a plan going into it, but it's part of, again, the chess match, which is not only Patriots defense, it's also going to be an offense, which I will start in the obvious place, Bill. When I was first dating my now wife, I made her chicken parm very, very early on. Okay. And it goes great because I have a killer freaking chicken parm, Bill. The problem was a couple months go by. Hey, let me cook for you again. Great. It's chicken parm. And then 3 months later, I start doing this again because I've got one note. I play it well. I'm going to play the hits. And her friends are going, did he make chicken parm again? Which is a way of asking you, can this Patriots offense develop a plan B? Do they have a second dish? Or like when you look at them this season, which we kind of hinted at before, is it going to be run first, chicken parm, play ahead only kind of offense here?
It's so funny because I think with my wife, when I started dating her, it was the same thing, but eggplant parm as opposed to chicken parm.
No way.
So basically the same idea here. I can't make many things. Eggplant parm is definitely like if I want to be a good partner, that is the thing I'm making. So
yeah, for sure.
Slightly different on the same scenario. I would say this, like, you're going to run the ball. Like, that is going to be your plan A. And I think that's clear. I think you want to be, again, we talked about, like, run the ball, protect the football, don't make mistakes, all that stuff. I think that's not going to change. The one thing I was a little surprised not to see very much of was the play action game. Mm-hmm. And they were only 3 of 5 for 26 yards. And, like, again, oldest cliche in the book, you're going to run the ball and then you're going to run hard play action off. Like, everyone knows them. Not like
in the National Football League. This is how we play. Yeah.
In the National Football League, you got to establish no, the Patriots are going to run the ball fine. They are a big physical team. And I guess I wonder, Andrew, and this is something you're going to have much more insight than I will as someone who watches this team closely. How much of that do you think was their fear about protecting Jacoby Brissett on hard play action? Because they might not feel like they could drop Jacoby Brissett for a 7-step drop very often in that game. They only So I think there's only about 4 or 5 other quarterbacks who use play action less often than Jacoby Brissett in week 1. Now, part of that was they didn't throw the ball very often. I think part of it was the offensive line, but I'll be intrigued to see. That's the thing I'm looking for, is that next step. That plan B is, okay, mix it up a tiny bit. Let's see if we can get rotini instead of linguine underneath the chicken parm. Let's see if we can get a fancy cheese thrown in there. But I think maybe mix in a little more play action, try and move those linebackers around, because I think that's a place to start. But we'll talk about maybe some of the strengths of the Seahawks defense and why that could be concerning for other reasons.
Yeah, this is going to be an Italian offense. That's what it is. But we can change the shape of the pasta. We can change the order, the heat, all these different things. I would say this. The play action point is a great one. I do think it was out of a fear of protection, because they pulled their starting left tackle after a dozen snaps.
Yes.
See you, Chukwuekorfor for enter Vederian Lowe, everyone's locally least favorite offensive lineman, through fault of his own. But we all pick one punching bag. Unfortunately for Vederian Lowe, it's him. So the other part about this is, Alex Van Pelt said this week he was surprised at how little that Cincinnati pressured, which to me was curious, because if you just kind of go into their shoes, you're the Bengals. You're like, they have a bad offensive line. We'll get home with Trey Hendrickson. We'll scheme up a couple of things. So they only blitzed twice. Mm-hmm. But I think that dictated early, hey, we're not going to run play action because we anticipate blitz. Then when they finally did run it, Jacoby Brissett missed on both of the bootlegs, which is another foundational part of this offense. So I think, to answer my own question about the plan B, you do increase the play action, right? I think you can get some more moving pocket stuff. They do run a fair amount of RPOs. There were only 2 screens, as far as I counted, maybe even just one that went to Ramondre Stevenson. Mm-hmm. And then I would say more motion at the snap, which is not something Van Pelt majored in Cleveland. But again, you talk about the less talent you have, the more coaching matters. You've got to mind every little edge. And you have players who got some gravity to them. Pop Douglas is one. Stevenson obviously is another. So there's a lot of things here, but ultimately, the umbrella, what's the category of this offense? It's a run first kind of meaty meat and potatoes offense that you just need to dress up a little bit. And those are the ways I think they can do it.
Yeah, and absolutely agree. I think the interesting thing about this game and how it's going to be so different from the Bengals game is the way Mike Macdonald attacks opposing offenses, and the strict thing he does. And I've watched a couple of Mike Macdonald clinics. I think I have a really good, and I've of course watched plenty of Ravens games the past couple of years. I think I have a pretty good handle on what he focuses on as a defensive mind, a defensive play caller, a defensive game planner on a week-to-week basis. What he wants to do is figure out your protections and then beat the hell out of them in every single way. He wants to exploit every single protection rule you have. And I think the biggest concern for the Patriots in this game is when you have an inexperienced, underwhelming offensive line, you want to keep the protection simple. You want to have it be really basic stuff. You want to have it be the safest stuff possible. And that is exactly what Mike Macdonald's going to exploit. And his big thing is the sim pressure. When a sim pressure is essentially when you are showing a heavy blitz and then you manage to simultaneously get an overload, get a mismatch while dropping guys off into coverage and being safe, dropping 7 guys into coverage, which creates possibilities for turnovers because guys are in places you don't expect. It creates free runners for sacks. It creates stress on the offensive line to adjust and adapt quickly. You have to change your protections at the line of scrimmage repeatedly. You have to be solid in your protections. You can't make mistakes. And then if you are just doing very simple protections reliably, Mike Macdonald's still going to exploit that. And so the biggest concern for me in this game with the Patriots is just you have a very inexperienced offensive line. You have an offense that, like you said, was not very active before the snap. You're not giving the Seahawks, or not giving, like it's the Bengals actually, but we're not give the Seahawks as well a lot of confusion about what they were doing in terms of the coverage behind those plays. I think that is a recipe for disaster. A very static offense against the Seahawks defense with very simple protections is a absolute I'm trying to think of the right phrase. Shooting gallery, rogues gallery, shooting fish in a barrel, some kind of shooting fish rogue bucket analogy I can't think of.
You're on the receiving end of the bullet rather than the one pulling the trigger.
Yes. Yeah. It's going to be easy for the Seahawks if that's the case.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And I wrote earlier this week after, asking around and finding out the Patriots are installing some of Mike Macdonald's stuff. So if you want to hear and understand how good this stuff is, the Patriots, who all learned under the master Bill Belichick, said, no, we want some of that and put it into our system. And they have not introduced it yet. The other part I would say is this: Mike Macdonald limited the Chiefs to 17 points in the AFC Championship game, made fools out of the 49ers in San Francisco as the Ravens defensive coordinator last year. Like, oh, they had more talent than Seattle does. He got the talent out of there. Like Jadeveon Clowney at age, let's guess, 47, had his best year ever under Mike Macdonald last year. This is an excellent, excellent football coach by any way you want to slice it up and what they're doing. So to your point about breaking down the protections, yes, it's true Alex Van Pelt has some experience going up against this, but you have a practice squad player for now at left guard, a rookie at right guard. And I talked to David Andrews, the man between them, this week and said, okay, walk me through these pressure packages. Maybe you could do it. He said no, which I totally understand and respect, but also was like, look, it's the unknown rusher, right? Where are the blitzers? That's going to be our problem. It's not where are the rushers? It's the second, third level guys, because Mike Macdonald, either in Baltimore or Seattle, gets more creative with those in the sim pressures than anyone else. So is there any, like, I don't know, like Mike Macdonald for dummies that you could give us? Because I didn't know you had gone to those clinics or studied those things, just very quickly about what he's doing. Yeah,
for sure. So basically, the biggest thing is he wants to understand your protections first. And this is a classic coaching thing. Like Kyle Shanahan, the famous thing about Kyle Shanahan is to be a great offensive coach, you have to understand defense from the ground up so you can break every rule that defense has. With Mike Macdonald, it's the same thing. He wants to see your protection, and then that gives him the ability to break it. So let's say, you're going to have what people would call a punt return rush on, right? Like 7 guys at the line of scrimmage. You don't know who's coming. You might have 6 guys to block it up. So, okay, if we have 6 guys to block it up and we spin to the left, we're going to slide everyone to the left. Okay, we have the first 6 guys from the left blocked. That 7th guy on the right is hot. So if that guy comes, Jacoby Brissett knows, okay, I have to throw the football before that guy gets to me because there's no one to block that guy. And on paper, that's kind of a logical thing, right? Like you can protect against the big blitz. You have the guys to do it. Okay, this is the one guy we can't block. So you're good then. You have, you have 4 pass receivers versus 4 guys in coverage. So if everyone comes, it's cover 0, 4 and 4. If 6 guys come, you're protected. If not, you're good to go. So what Mike Macdonald does is know how you're going to react to that different look he shows by sliding left, and then he's going to drop 3 guys from the left side who are theoretically assigned to different offensive linemen back into coverage. And the 4 guys from the right, including that unblocked guy, are all going to blitz. So now you have 3 linemen to block 4 guys. You have 1 guy coming free, and you still have 7 guys in coverage because those 3 guys who were threatening the left side are now dropping into coverage. And then the 3 offensive linemen who were supposed to block those guys, they're just hanging out. They're just going to have a cup of tea. They're going to chat while Jacoby Brissett is murdered by the unblocked offensive line or unblocked pass rusher. So that's what Macdonald does, is he forces you to do something with your protection, knows what you're going to do, and then does something to exploit that, getting all the benefits of having an unblocked rusher without the downside of having to send a ton of guys and having nobody back in coverage. Now, occasionally he'll big blitz, occasionally he'll mix it up, but that is sort of the core tenet of let's take advantage of what you do on protection, and then we're going to exploit that, waste some of your offensive linemen to do nothing, and then still get free runners on your quarterback.
And that was exceptionally said. I think even to think of it is even simpler. Like if you're trying to identify what rate is this defense playing man coverage on third down? Offensively, we're going to build in 60, 70, 80% of our third down game plan to beat man coverage. That's what he's doing. Like you can identify protections if you really get into the weeds, like anyone at home watching going, oh, they're playing man to man. The other part about what you just described too is it's not only we have 7 in coverage, and there are a lot of teams that run variations of this, but they'll run a trap where, if you imagine the scenario that you presented, 7 at the line, okay, we're going to slide to the left. And if I'm a quarterback who has 2 receivers to the right, and I'm looking at that right side, because as you described, that's the hot rusher. If he comes, then I'll throw it. If that's a nickel off of the inside receiver, I'll just throw a quick out route. He's uncovered. His guy's blitzing. The trap coverage behind that says the outside receiver to that same side is looking at the slot, will jump the out route because he knows as the defensive line drops on the left side and everyone spins over, the safety over the top says, oh, I'll take that outside receiver. You can jump that little out route. And it's just devious. Like this shit's great. Which is a long way of nerding out and saying the Patriots, if you're most concerned about something, it's pass protection. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pass protection. And it's not just the physical one-on-one matchups. It's just, like last week, like it wasn't like the Trey Hendrickson was a secret. He was going to go up against Drew Secor for. He was just beating him one-on-one. There's not that great of a pass rusher in this mix. They have good players. Leonard Williams is a good player. They're not going to have a Uchenna Nwosu, but they have good players up front. I don't think they have anyone as good as Hendrickson, but it's more the mental game. It's more the assignment game. It's more the, can we get our pass rushers against nobody? Can we blow up a play before it happens? And then to your point, given that you're asking Jacoby Brissett, who I think is a very smart quarterback, to figure out stuff on the fly, to find those solutions on the fly, to find those hot reads with an inexperienced group of receivers. Well, maybe sometimes, your receiver doesn't get the message. Maybe he doesn't realize a blitz is coming. Yeah. And maybe he just runs his normal vertical route and Jacoby Brissett throws to nobody and it's a pick six. Like that sort of pressure creates these kind of problems for opposing teams, opposing quarterbacks. It forces you into mistakes. We saw in that Bengals-Niners game that you mentioned. I mean, there were a couple plays that were fluky. A pass got thrown up in the air and got tipped up and, bounced around. That stuff happens. But there were throws Brock Purdy made in that game where he would not make them in normal games because he wasn't as stressed. He wasn't as flummoxed. He was more confident with where he knew to go with the football. I think there's a question of, as the game goes on, this is sort of the classic example of, and it's a different kind of defense, but the Belichick ghost story, right? Like, with Sam Darnold, he didn't trust where to go with the football. He didn't trust where he could go in coverage. He didn't trust who was coming and who wasn't coming, and didn't trust that the Jets could block that. And that's what leads to quarterbacks seeing ghosts. And, in the worst case scenario for the Patriots, it's that kind of game where Jacoby Brissett just gets sacked 8 or 9 times, doesn't know where the pressure's coming from, doesn't know who's going to protect it, doesn't know where to go with the football if there is pressure, and the offense just breaks down. Now, that is a unlikely scenario. I think Jacoby Brissett is a much smarter quarterback than Sam Darnold. The protections are going to be better. I think the receivers are going to be okay, but I do think that is the worst case scenario given how good Mike Macdonald is as a disruptor on defense.
And I'll say too, I don't know what percent of his contract says like, you need to win in the AFC West, but I know it's a significant percentage that's the reason he's here, like facing Kyle Shanahan twice a year. Sean McVay, he solved a lot of those Shanahan-esque offenses in a way that other defensive coordinators just haven't. And this offense falls under that tree, frankly, like the way that they implement a lot of wide zone boots off of that. And it's more old school Shanahan, but moving on. Seattle, in case you were feeling bad enough about the Patriots' chances offensively, had the lowest percentage of runs that went for 5 yards or more allowed of any defense in week 1. And this is not the Broncos offense. And that was rookie quarterback, but that to me, when you look at Leonard Williams will be an issue. Byron Murphy, I think, could have a field day. The rookie out of Texas. They drafted a defensive tackle. Boye Mafe, more of a pass rusher. But like these are good guys up front. If you're designing very quickly a run game plan here, Bill, for the Patriots to find some either soft spots or just ride their strengths, which is Mike Onwenu and David Andrews, what does that run plan kind of look like?
I think it's a lot of outside stuff. I think this is probably a zone heavy day for the Patriots just because you might not have the physical pieces to match up one-on-one up front. I think you want to get those guys on the move. And I think you want to sort of dare McDonald to not do exotic stuff. And I think one way to beat, a lot of smaller boxes, a lot of guys, at the line of scrimmage, get the ball outside, get your pitches going. I mean, you think about the Falcons Patriots game from a few years ago. The thing the Falcons did that really worked early in that game was a lot of crack toss, a lot of stuff to get the ball out on the perimeter, get those linebackers moving, get the.
You're talking about the Super Bowl, right?
The Super Bowl, yes.
Yeah.
Get the Patriots who were a very, box heavy team at that time, get them out away from that space and force them to kind of, get on the edge and tackle. I think that's where you probably go if you're the Patriots. So I think that might be the game plan here. But I think a lot just comes down to what the game script is. If you can keep it close, you can do that. But if they get behind early, that's trouble for the Patriots. Hopefully that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, I would add to that too. We talk about tackling in space. I think that's something every offensive coordinator should have in their bag weeks 1 through 4 anyway, right? Tackling is not as tight as it should be. Rayshon Jenkins, safety they signed him for agency, that I kind of like for the Pats. He missed 3 times according to PFF. Jerome Baker missed twice. And like twice is like, okay. But when you get in the teens, which they were, and missed tackles, that to me says, okay, we need Pop Douglas in space. Rondre Stevenson and some of those crack tosses, maybe some reverses, just eyes in places where they shouldn't be, or just get our best guys with the ball, because more often than not, like guys miss this time of year rather than if you were going to see them in December. All right, let's go 3, 2, 1. We got 3 matchups, 2 keys, 1 wild card thought. My first matchup, and then I'll let you go and I'll have the third, is Leonard Williams against David Andrews, because like that guy is still a powerful defensive tackle. He'll play across the line, but that to me, like they need. The Patriots do their second best offensive lineman to win against an interior guy he's going to see a lot of.
Yeah, I think that's a logical place to start. And David Andrews is going to have a lot of protection responsibilities in this game as well. He's going to have to hold up. I think they're going to probably put, I think because he's such an experienced offensive lineman, they'll probably try to cover him up at times, try to force him to, have to block immediately. So I'd be intrigued to see what their fronts look like in this game for Seattle. I have DK versus Christian Gonzalez. Again, I don't think it's going to be in every single matchup situation here, but you're going to see him in key situations. They're going to trust him because, like you said, the height is significant here. The physicality is significant here. Not a lot of teams have a Christian Gonzalez to work with. The Seahawks actually are one. Devon Witherspoon is an awesome football player for Seattle in their secondary, probably their best player at any position on the field. I think that's probably the biggest matchup for the Patriots on defense if they choose to play defense that way and have a lot of Gonzalez versus DK one-on-one.
Yeah, I'm going to build off of that for the third one, and then we go to two keys, is the safeties versus Geno Smith, right? Like that cat and mouse game, the Patriots were up early. Part of that was scheme and game plan, but like once you get into the thick of it, you talk about trying to fool him into turnovers. You can give up an explosive play or two if you get the turnover in return, the defense's version of that kind of explosive play. So whether it's disguise, it'll be maybe occasional doubles, whatever they're going to do. And Duggar is limited on Thursday. We haven't gotten the full practice report just yet today, Friday. Yep. But that to me is a really good matchup, which also will depend on them sifting through all those shifts and motions, right? Like what actual formation is this? And they're experienced guys. They should be able to handle that. But, Seattle's also going to have new stuff to throw at them. So that mental game between Smith and the safeties is going to be a big one.
For sure. And like I said, I think it's also, that's going to be dictated by the situation, right? Like if the Patriots are competitive, it's going to be a different story. If they're behind early, it's going to be dealing with a lot of physicality, probably more two tight end sets from the Seahawks if they do get ahead. And then we saw the Seahawks wear the Broncos down as that game went along last week. Yeah.
All right. Two keys. What's your key?
My key, and you actually alluded to this earlier, so I had this in my notes, so I'm not cheating off of you. Drives that end with 0 sacks and 0 turnovers. So drives that end with punts, drives that end with field goals. Ideally for the Patriots, drives that end in touchdowns, but drives with 0 negative plays. Like if you lose a yard, it's okay, but no sacks, no turnovers. I would say, what's the number? If the Patriots have 8 of those in this game, they win this game. I think that's a big ask given how good McDonald is in terms of creating.
I was going to say 8 feels, if you estimate 12 to 13 possessions,
like 7, 8.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, I maybe that's like an obvious thing. Like, if they score 40 points, they're going to win this game. but I think in terms of like, what's a realistic thing they can do? They can avoid sacks. Right. They can avoid turnovers. It might be a conservative game plan, but I think that's the key thing I'm going to look for in this game on offense.
So one thing we have not talked about now going on almost close to an hour is special teams. And A, because it's a podcast that we want people to listen to. B, it's because there's just an obvious point here that I'll add to the key, though. Like you talk about the Patriots mining edges that they need to. They did that, obviously, against Cincinnati. And I'm not talking about the long snapper having a forced fumble, but I'm talking about Marcus Jones show up as a returner. I'm talking about having your kick coverage team, Brendan Schooler, hit 22.5 miles per hour and get there first, to build in a little bit more cushion. Like the field position battle here, like a lot of low scoring games, bad offensive lines, and probably minimal explosive plays is going to be huge. And Seattle, as I said at the top, 27th for now, it's 1 week, in DVOA on special teams. Patriots are 8th. Right now, that is their quote unquote best phase, which we know will not hold up over the entire season. But they've got players at positions, not to mention Bryce Behringer, like could kick one close to the city. Like that dude's got a hose for a leg. So I just think that's an area too where like you need to start 5 to 10 yards closer to the end zone than Seattle does. I think if you really, really want to win this game.
Yeah. I mean, Patriots last year, 32nd in special teams DVOA. They had terrible special teams. A lot of that was the kicking, and that's improved this year, obviously. Or I think it's going to improve this year, but so far it's so good. But I do think that is a place for the Patriots. Again, you're going to want to get your edges. You're going to have to find spots here and there. Like you're not going to have, better receivers. You can't make that happen overnight. That's not going to happen with, in 100 games, you might have better play from your receivers in 2 or 3 of those games versus the Seahawks. But special teams you can do. That seems more plausible to me.
Yeah. All right. One wild card thought. This is for folks who are new. Anything tangential to the game. It could be another matchup, a key, weather, historical, just random thought to kind of cap us here.
Seahawks traveling. I mean, the numbers on traveling to the East Coast historically, it's been a problem for West Coast teams. They usually underperform. Now, the Seahawks felt like under Pete Carroll, they found their formula. They travel early in the week, they stay on West Coast time, and their record improved significantly with Pete Carroll than it had with the prior regime. I'm going to say I think the Seahawks were good against the East Coast teams because they were really good for most of the Pete Carroll era. I don't know if that was Pete's travel formula. They did go 2-1 last year, but the wins they had were over the Giants and Tennessee. They got blown out by the Baltimore Ravens 37-3. So they've kept with that. But let's see, right? Let's see how they look early in this game. Do they look sluggish? Do they look tired? Does that even matter? I don't know, but I just think that is the one thing thinking about, we normally sort of give teams a penalty when the West Coast teams travel to the East Coast for a 1:00 game. And it seems like some subs, at least the Seahawks, believe there are exceptions to that rule. Maybe we'll find out.
That's a good one. I know everyone here, I think picking the Pats locally that's reason number one. Like, oh, they got to travel 2,500 miles, kid. Like, who are we kidding? I would say, yeah, I don't know. Like, I haven't studied it enough. It's an advantage for the Patriots to be at home and the Seahawks making their longest trip of the season. But we'll see where that surfaces. Mine goes to a name I don't think most folks have thought about here in a while. Pharaoh Brown apparently wants this to be a revenge game. This came up in Mike Donald press conference on Wednesday where he came up and he didn't play last week and he practiced on Wednesday, didn't on Thursday. And I'm just wondering, Bill, like I used to umpire Little League and I had an intentional bad call. It's a long story. That's the last game I ever called. Like if I, for whatever reason, went back to that Little League field, do I get a revenge game? Because if Pharaoh Brown gets these revenge games of all players in the NFL, what are we doing here? And I will add this. He said similar things to us at the start of last year and a very warm, welcoming, open guy. Really enjoyed my interactions with Pharaoh Brown. But he said, I'm looking forward to playing the Colts. I can't wait for that game. They cut me. They didn't believe me. He had one more tackle than he had catch in that disastrous game that hopefully everyone can forget about in Germany. So, like, am I being a jerk? Jerk or no jerk? I guess is what I'm asking here at the end of the Pharaoh Brown rant.
You're not being a jerk, but I think this happens more than you think. I mean, or maybe not more than you think, but more than people think. Like, NFL players will find any pretense to believe that they are being doubted. I mean, the famous one is right. The Tom Brady, everyone believes we suck quote from the playoff run, where it's like, I don't think a single person who you would care about believes that you suck, Tom Brady and the Patriots. That is not a real thing that really happened. But if you can convince yourself that something is meaningful, you're going to, maybe you're going to be more motivated. Maybe you need something just to get up because football is so tough. I don't believe that the Patriots did Pharaoh Brown dirty. I don't believe that in his heart of hearts, 20 years from now, Pharaoh Brown, a retired, happy, contented Pharaoh Brown will sit here and say, man, I really hate those Patriots. But for a week, if you needed to get up for the game, I'm not going to blame you. Go for it, Pharaoh Brown.
Yeah. Look, I would have kept them. So I'm not doing the be critical of the guy and then back away like, oh, I didn't really mean it. Like, I'll stand by that and tell you I enjoyed my time with him. And I think as a third blocking tight end, he would be great for what they need right now.
Well, Andrew, I don't think Pharaoh Brown's going to tune in for that part. I think he turned the show off when he heard you dismissing him. He's like, screw Andrew Callahan. This is a revenge game for me. He's going to score a touchdown. He's going to point at you in the press box and say, that's one more touchdown than I had in that Colts game last year, huh?
Yeah, and he's going to be holding up a middle finger when he says that's one more touchdown at me in my general direction. All right, prediction time, and we'll get you out of here. Actually, I have Keion White, future king of cringe comedy, I believe, who's going to finish this up with a 4-minute drill recorded with him in the locker room earlier this week. But prediction. Am I getting birds from Seahawks fan? Who wins?
I'm gonna pick the Patriots. I just maybe this is me falling in love with my preseason prediction. Maybe it's me just being too hyped about what we saw last week. I do think the Patriots are really good at communicating. I think that plays a big role in this game in terms of their ability to cover on defense. I think they can give Geno some trouble. I think they can control the line of scrimmage on defense. The offense is going to be scary. I think it's going to be a ugly, low-scoring game. And in that kind of game, I think playing at home is a big difference. I think playing on your body clock is a big difference. I think having a special teams advantage can be a big difference. So I will say like the Patriots 16, Seahawks 13, maybe like a really low-scoring game, kind of similar to last week. I think the Patriots get the dub. So
we just played jerk or no jerk. You said no jerk. Everyone listening now is going to say jerk. I have the same score. Just scratch that and reverse it.
Oh,
Seahawks 16, Patriots 13, which feels very much like that. It's a 3.5 point spread. Week 2, pick the favorite, but the Pats technically cover. Kind of like, okay, cool take your prediction, Callahan. But for all the reasons you said, I think it will be ugly on offense. I think the talent disparity is notable on both sides. And there's just one error that it takes for DK to spring loose, or Tyler Lockett, we really didn't even talk about, led them in catches and receiving yards. And people know Tyler Lockett, but like, it's not as simple again as it was last week. Shut down Jamar Chase, get out of there with a win. There are more weapons here, but it's wacky. It's week 2. This is awesome, Bill. We went double what I told you we would do, and you're still sitting here. So thank you very much for kind of giving us the time and the wisdom, and making my prediction, making me look like a jerk at the end. But that, I think, look, I could see it both ways. I've gotten more hopeful the more I've looked at this game as the week's gone on.
Yeah, it's a blast, Andrew. Love talking about football, and this is a really fun conversation. So happy to do it, and hopefully I'll be right. If not, well, they only got to win 5 in the big picture for me to feel good about it the whole year. So we can bank a couple losses now that we started 1-0. But let's see if the Patriots pull out and start 2-0. Who could anybody anticipated the Patriots starting 2-0 this year? It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Then that creates a universe in which they're 3-0. Thank you to the New York Jets, who until last January had not beaten them since the Obama administration, which was my favorite fact towards the end of last season. RIP now, but like that, I'm glad I'll have a full weekend and then a full week to wrap my head around the 3-0 New England Patriots if it comes to that. But we're getting ourselves ahead of time of what will be a Thursday night game in less than a week. Yeah.
I mean, I think it'll be a fun short week, and I mean the Jets did not look great in week 1, so they're a vulnerable football team. Patriots, not saying they're going to be 3-0. Figure they'll probably lose one of these next 2 games, but again, who could have anticipated we'd even be having that possibility of a conversation heading into week 2?
Yeah. I appreciate you, Bill. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
You're with Keion White, another 4-minute drill on the Pats Interference Podcast. Keion just got the rundown, football to non-football. And we'll start the clock, go till there's 4 minutes left. Keion, first question. How long would I need to train to beat you in an arm wrestling contest?
All your life.
All my life?
Yeah.
Is there anyone in here that could out arm wrestle you?
Maybe Wise, Farms. They work out a lot. They work out in the morning a lot, for sure.
So just a D lineman?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, for sure.
All right, football question. I think D linemen generally are underrated as far as what you have to do mentally, right? Going into each play, what you're looking for. Can you give us a mental checklist? You get the call, what you're looking for, what you're doing next.
Yeah, so prior to the call, you need to see what the down and distance is. Then once you get the call, you need to see where you're lining up with. You need to see the back location, where the quarterback's at, what's the receiver's stances, sets, splits, offensive lineman stances, splits. You need to understand where your pressures are coming from behind you. And then you need to understand what the tendency and the offense wants to do in the situation that you're in.
Got it. So it's like going to class for 60 times based on how many snaps you have in a particular game. Back to non-football. Person in the world, quarterback or non-quarterback, you would most like to sack?
Probably my father, my dad.
Why's that?
Just to pretty much talk shit. I don't know. We got a pretty competitive relationship, so definitely non-quarterback, my dad.
Got it. Back to football. You mentioned pressure. Talk to us about your favorite pressure. It could be a blitz, a simulated pressure, or a certain rush stunt. What does it look like? How does it work?
Favorite pressure, anyone where I could just run straight. So like anything like that, that's my favorite one.
All right.
Yeah.
Looked like that happened a couple times in Cincy.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. We are almost at 2 minutes here in the 4-minute drill. Give us a moment, if this has ever happened, where Keion White cried in a movie. Have you ever cried in a movie?
Cried in a movie? Nah. I think the last time I cried in the last 20 years is probably when I got drafted.
That's it? The last 20 years?
Yeah.
What was? Go ahead.
I don't know. Like maybe when I was like getting whoopings when I was like a kid. Like other than that, I'm not crying for real. Not a crier.
Did you ever come close to crying in a non-football, non-whooping setting?
Nah, never. I don't remember. I couldn't tell you.
All right. Give us a scouting report. Keion White and Keion White.
Keion White? What do you mean Keion White?
Like if I'm with the Seahawks right now and I'm reading their scouting report of Keion White, what does it say?
I don't know. I never really stopped to think about things like that. Like I kind of just like.
Well, we got some time now.
Yeah. So I'm just run fast. I'm gonna just go chase down plays. So I guess you got to finish the blocks for real. So.
All right. When this person texts you a good game or a good play, it means a little bit more. Who is that person for you?
Probably my coaches. Those are the ones that know. Like, I feel like with the whole like PFF and all these commentators and everything like that, how are you going to grade somebody off of like something you don't know the play? So like your coaches know best. So I guess those are the ones that like mean the most. So.
What's the coach who meant the most? Like, you got this text and maybe it was surprising, or it just meant more because you were close. Like, this coach is different from the rest.
I mean, the coach I got now. So like Jerry, DC. So like those are the ones that's coaching me right now. So those are the ones that mean the most to me right now, for real.
All right. Cheat day. What's Keion White eating? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What are you gorging on?
So like my Tuesdays I cook on the grill. So like I cook on the grill, have some people over, and those are my things. I love the grill. Love the grill as much as possible. So that's my cheat day meal.
What's on the grill?
Yesterday I did jerk chicken, the bourbon glazed salmon, cabbage, anything. I throw up anything on the grill, for real.
You have any sports writers over ever?
Nah, no sports writers. Just
all right. We'll work on that. Last one. You used to play tight end. Ex-defensive players here have caught a couple passes, Mike Vrabel being the most famous among them. Are you ready to catch a touchdown pass this year if need be?
Man, for sure. I never caught a touchdown pass in college, so I feel like I got to get one eventually.
All right, keep an eye out for him. He's Keion White. Play a little offense, of course, on defense. Running straight. That's the scouting report. Appreciate you, man.
For sure, no problem.